before we get into this video, stop what you're doing, subscribe to the channel by pushing the subscribe button down below, ring the notification bell, the bell-shaped icon, thumbs up the video, and then comment down below with any ideas you have for future content you'd like to see. Hello YouTube. This video is about my friend A.G. Hayden and my friend James Tusk, and it's more to A.G. Hayden, but it's about both of you guys. You guys are both fantastic day gamers. I mean, really good. I don't care what you say, Hayden. Tusk is up there. He's legit. I learned a lot of what I know from both of you guys, from your materials, from your free materials, from your courses. But I'll tell you what, Hayden, James Tusk is legit. I don't care what anybody says, because I learned my first cold approach stop on the moves from him. He's got his very, very London Daygame style of everything that he does. It's from the London Daygame model, from the approach and stop to, you know, stacking and assumption stacking, and, you know, telling the girl your story of how you saw her and why you stopped her, etc., etc. That, you know, other day gamers don't even do anything like that. Like Scott Jack doesn't do any of that stuff, and his way works too. I've tried both of them. They both work, man. And your materials work. And you guys all have a lot of things in common, and then you have some things that you do separate that I wouldn't even say are necessarily wrong. It's just you're all different people, and different things work for you for very specific reasons. And, you know, I hear what you're saying about, you know, James Tusk can get away with things that you can't get away with, or that other guys can't get away with, just because he's, you know, relatively tall, he's muscular, he's good looking. He's got like a Colin Farrell kind of look, you know. I'm tall, I'm good looking. Don't judge me right now, because I just woke up and I stayed up until 4 o'clock in the morning working. But, you know, I'm 6'4". I'm literally tall, dark, and handsome by the, you know, by most people's definition of that. And because of that, Hayden, you're right about Tusk, and it would apply to me. I don't have to be as good as you at Daygame to get it to work in the sense of looks. But I'll also tell you this. This doesn't apply to Tusk. This applies to me and people, you know, of brown skin like myself. You might not have to be as good at Daygame in certain areas in order to get girls when you're taller or better looking or more handsome or darker or whatever. Dark by the sense of tall, dark, and handsome, not by the sense of race, just meaning, you know, brooding or whatever. But I'll tell you this. James Tusk might be able to have a little bit lazier game and get a better result than you if he's doing that. But that same thing applies to you, bro. That 100% applies to you as well. You might be more of an average Joe kind of looking guy. You're not a bad looking guy, and you're not a supermodel looking guy, and that's fine. And James Tusk is more of a like a movie star, rugged actor role, like a Colin Farrell look, and that's fine too. And you're right, because of that, James Tusk can do some things and say some things and get away with some things that you can't. But like I said, that same privilege goes to you though, bro. Because let me tell you something. Black day gamers, mixed day gamers, Hispanic day gamers, day gamers from India, or Native American day gamers, I watch them all, man. They have to have some way more finely tuned in-sync game than you do to get even half the results that you do. So just like you have to have better game than a James Tusk of the world or a Scott Jack of the world, you or like Yod or somebody like that that's a little shorter, you know, a little less, you know, perfect 10 on a girl's, shallowness scale of looks has to have some tighter game. A Yod or a Hayden has to have some tighter game than a James Tusk or a Scott Jack or a James Marshall would have to have, being, tall, good-looking white guys. Well, I'm tall and good-looking, but I'm brown, and I guarantee you, I 100% guarantee you can believe it or not. You can take it or leave it, but watch any of the infields of like Prince O or the Engineered Lifestyle or the pickup artist. I can't think of his name off the top of my head, but he goes like by the world's ugliest pickup artist or something. He's some dude from India. These brown pickup artists, bro, especially the darker skin they get, watch their infields. The darker skin they get, no matter how tall and good looking they are, no matter how ripped they are, they have to put in more work. They have to be better and more skilled to get 6 or 7 out of 10 girls that are like 7s or 8s in looks to respond positively to their good game. Then you could get maybe 8 out of those same 10 girls in number, but your 8 would be an 8 or 9 in looks, simply because you're white. And so, just like James Tusk has a certain amount of privilege because he's a good-looking man, he can get away with some things that you couldn't. He can, he could pull some stunts and say some sexually risque things that you couldn't, and make it work just because he's good looking and get away with it. That's true, but in the same sense, you can say some sexually risque stuff to a girl that would get me put in jail, tased and maced. I guarantee you. You could touch a girl in public on your first meeting if you wanted to. I know that you don't teach to do that. Other people teach that you must do that within 20 seconds to sexually escalate and to make a girl feel romantic for you, and then other people like you teach that you don't need to do that at first. The point is, you could do it, and you could do it. You could sexually escalate physically with a girl, touching her, holding her hand, hugging her within 2 minutes, and have no problem in doing that. Whereas Prince O or the Engineered Lifestyle, or I can't think of the other guy's name, but there's a pretty good looking dude. I think he's in California. He's a black dude with a beard. Pretty cool guy. If they tried some of the crap that you could get away with, and they didn't have their game 100% like laser focused, like in the zone that day, just because they're black, just because they're brown, just because they're Indian, they would end up in jail or slapped, or a girl screaming at them with a bunch of handsome white knights surrounding them to fight them. So I just want you to think about that, bro. I want you to realize that, because you have a valid point. Better looking day gamers than you can get away with things that you can't, like James Tusk and James Marshall, like Brent Smith, Scott Jack. These tall, good looking white guys can get away with things that you can't. But I'm a tall, good looking brown guy. I'm half white, but in society's eyes, I would be considered black to a stranger that's just gazing upon me, doesn't know me, or maybe Indian, or maybe Native American, maybe Hispanic, whatever, Moroccan. I could be considered lots of things, but what nobody would confuse me with in public is white, okay? And just like Scott Jack or James Tusk or James Marshall will get away with some stuff you can't just because they're good looking, you could definitely, 1000%, I guarantee you, I've social experimented the hell out of this, you could definitely 100% get away with stuff I couldn't. And I'm 6'4", I'm brown, I'm good looking. Most people would tell you that I am good looking to them. I'm not shy to admit that, and I'm not conceited. I just know what people tell me. I know I'm up there, man. I know just physically, without my personality even involved, I'm like a 9. then I own acreage. I own 50% of a real estate company. I like to wear 3-piece suits. I like to work out. I like to juice fast and eat healthy. I have an awesome and funny personality, bro. I'm bare minimum a 10 with everything combined. And when you're just talking physical, I'm at least an 8 or 9. That's just real. And I guarantee you that I don't know how tall you are, but I'm guessing that you're like 5'8". Correct me if I'm wrong down in the comments. But you're shorter compared to someone like me. You're kind of rounder compared to someone like me. And you're better than Daygame than I am, that's for sure. And probably a lot of that is because I don't have to be like you said about James, just because I can get away with certain things because I'm good looking and tall or whatever. But at the same time, I guarantee you I'm better at it than you in other ways that you don't have to be. It's not that you're better or I'm better. It's that you have to be better in certain areas because you're not tall and super handsome, and I have to be better in other areas because I'm not white and super able to culturally acceptably get away with certain things that you can't. So yeah, James Tusk can get away with stuff that you can't, and he can have lazy game in certain areas that you can't. But then because of that, he has to have better game than you in other areas. He has to be careful not to hear it conceited, whereas you could say something and nobody would consider you being conceited in saying it. James Tusk could say the same thing, and a girl could go from 10 attracted to him to 0 because it seems conceited because he's good looking and he said it. You know, he can say certain things to a certain degree because he's good looking and it will seem confident. Then he can go over the line and it'll seem conceited. Probably a lot of people watching this video that were girls might have dropped their attraction for me when I just went off on a rant a few seconds ago about saying I'm tall, dark, handsome, and a 10. I don't care though. But the point is that you have to have better game than James Tusk in certain areas of game because you're less attractive than him physically, yes. Less tall, less muscular, less Colin Farrell looking. But I have to have better day game than you in certain areas when I'm 6'4" and I'm handsome. And I have money and I have property and I own a business and I'm very smart, and yet I could approach certain women that would be attracted to James Tusk or James Marshall without them saying a word, that would be attracted to you after you said a few words with good day game skill, and they might not be attracted to me for 5 or 10 minutes until I put a lot of work in, because I have to get over humps that you don't, simply because I'm brown. Does that mean that because I have to do things better than you in certain areas of day game that I'm terrible, one of the world's worst, and you're the best? No, it doesn't mean that. It means that I'm brown and you're white, and that's the world, and that's the way it is, whether we like it or not. And I can either whine about it, or I can watch brown day gamers and black day gamers and Indian day gamers and learn the things they have to do different than you that get them results that work for me that wouldn't work for you. And it's the same thing with you and James. You can you know, it might not be fair that he doesn't have to have certain skills that you have because he's good looking and because he's white and because he's tall and you're white and skilled at day game, but you're not tall and supermodel, you know. But there's nothing wrong with him, and that's just the world. And that's not racist, that's not sexist, that's not classist, that's not, I don't know what you call it when you're talking about somebody being better looking or not, but that's not that. It's just facts. You can just research dating site statistics. The lowest desirable human beings on dating sites are black women. Nothing wrong with black women. I'm just talking about dating site statistics and how they work on record. And then black men. Lowest. We're at the bottom of the totem pole. Black women are at the very bottom of the totem pole on dating sites. Black men are right below them. And then all y'all other races go up the ladder of desirability until you get to the white male. So you're on the top of that desirability chart, Hayden. Now, James Tusk is above you on that desirability chart because James Tusk is white but tall and good looking and has awesome hair and muscular build and 5 o'clock shadow and all that bullcrap. So yeah, he's above you on that scale. So if the scale was 1 to 10 of social sexual marketplace value, James Tusk would be on the top of that simply because of his looks without saying a word, and all he kind of has to do is not mess it up with his day game, whereas you have to put in a little bit of work, but you're still on the top of that 9 and 10 scale just because you're white and have any game at all. And then I'd be way down at the bottom of the totem pole at the 1 and 2 area until I talk my way into being attractive to a girl just because of my skin color, whereas you just have to not talk your way out of it just because of your skin color. And whereas James doesn't have to talk his way, James has to just not say anything, and you know, people are going to think he's attractive, and then the better at day game he is, the more amazing they'll like him. That's just life, man. It doesn't make James Tusk a bad day gamer. It doesn't make you a bad day gamer. He's not a bad day gamer because he doesn't have to try as hard as you because he's good looking. I'm not a bad day gamer because I have to try harder than you because I'm brown. And you're not a bad day gamer because you don't have to try as hard as me just because you're not brown. It's not your fault you're not brown. I don't hold that against you. It's not James Tusk's fault he's good looking. He didn't ask to be born looking like Colin Farrell. I would choose his looks if I had the choice. No, I wouldn't. I like being me actually. Even if it's harder to be brown in a day gamer, I like being me. But that's just me. But you know what I'm saying? Like it would be desirable to be at the top of the totem pole where all you have to do is not screw it up. I mean, James Tusk and James Marshall and Scott Jack, they're right below perfect 10 women. Perfect 10 women don't have to do anything. They can just go out in public to a bar, sit down, and men are going to approach them and want to date them, marry them, have sex with them. That's almost what it would be like to be a James Tusk or a James Marshall, but because they're males, they still have to put in some work because that's just the job of males in society, is to approach the woman, not vice versa usually. But that doesn't make them bad people, bro, and it doesn't make them bad day gamers. And I know you're not saying that James Tusk is a bad person, but you specifically did say that he's a terrible day gamer, and that's just not true, man. I mean, I learned the first 90% of what I learned from Daygame, I learned from James Tusk, from James Marshall, from Yod, which Yod does exactly the same things James Tusk does. It's just that Yod is not good looking and is fat and greasy looking, and James Tusk is handsome. So it works a lot better for James Tusk with a lot less effort than it would for Yod. Yod is probably better at it because he taught James Tusk, but Yod has to be way better at it, mechanically speaking, to even get half the results of James Tusk because James is good looking, and I had to be 1,000 times better at it than Yod, even though he's short, fat, and greasy, and I'm tall, dark, and handsome, simply because Yod is white and has a British accent, and I'm brown and have an American accent. And white with a British accent is just way up on the totem pole. And then James Tusk is white with a British accent and then looks like Colin Farrell. That's just at the top of the Mount Olympus. I mean, that doesn't make him a bad day gamer, though. So that's just what I wanted to say, Hayden. I got your course. I love your course. It's amazing. I don't have a course of James Tusk simply because he doesn't have one that I'm aware of, but I learned just as much, if not more, from his free material than I learned from your course, and I recommend your course highly. But I'm just telling you, I learned just as much of some of the same stuff and some different stuff from James Tusk's free material just watching him that I learned from your course, you know, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's just a fact. And I would get James Tusk's course if he had it. But I'll tell you what, like I said, even with both y'all's courses, even memorizing all y'all's materials, I still have to learn from people like Prince O, from people like I can't think of his name, but I mentioned it earlier. But I still have to learn from Black and Indian and Native American and Hispanic day gamers, because I have to do certain things different than you have to do, and that's just the way it is. Just because I'm brown, and you're gonna have to do some things different than James Tusk does. That's just the way it is. Just because he's super handsome, that's just the way of the world, bro. It's just the way of the world. We can complain about it. We can point it out and say that some people are less skilled than us at an area of day game than the other. That doesn't mean that we're better than them, though. It just means that we have to be more skilled than them at a certain area, and they have to be more skilled than us at other areas. That's just the way it is. So that's just my opinion, Hayden. James Tusk is a cool guy. I think you should talk to him, have him on your show. No, you don't have a show, but you know what I mean when you interview people on your channel. But I think that y'all would get along. James Tusk is an awesome guy. I text him all the time. I talk to him on the phone, on WhatsApp all the time. Talk to him on Facebook all the time. He's really awesome. He's a real down to earth guy, and he's amazing at day game. I don't know. I know what clip you watched, or I know what clip you showed watching in your videos, and so what, man? That's one of the cool things about James Tusk, is that he posts his failures too. He posts videos back to back to back to back to back getting rejected on a day where he's not doing good at all, just because he's not in the zone, or he'll post back to back rejections on a day where he's doing amazing and the women are just in a bad mood for whatever reason back to back. And he doesn't deny that like some day gamers, and only post his successful infields and make himself look like a super pimp that only gets yeses, and I like that about him. So it's not hard to find a video of James Tusk failing and then saying, look, he's terrible at day game that day. But bro, you can find a video like that of anybody who's posting all of their interactions. I don't care who it is. If you post 100% of your interactions, I guarantee you I can find 5 or 10 of them and be like, look, Hayden has the sloppiest form ever. But that doesn't mean that you do. It means you did in that day, you know, in that particular interaction. So that's just my thoughts, my comments and criticisms. I love you, Hayden. I think you're an amazing day gamer. I love James Tusk. I think he's an amazing day gamer. I learned a lot from both of you, and I really think that y'all should get along. Let's not do this rapper beef stuff, all right?